Attention, you're listening to The Todd Huff Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk and education. Be advised, the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. And now, coming to you from the Full Suite Wealth Studios, here's your conservative but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Well, that is right, my friends. You have tuned in to America's home for conservative, not bitter talk. I am your host, the one, the only, the ever so benevolent dictator here behind the microphone, Todd Huff. It is my pleasure to be here with you today. You know, yesterday I told you that there were a few things that I wanted to get to, and I did not get to all of them as I suspected we would not. So today I want to try to play a little bit of catch up today. I want to talk about JD Vance's appearance on The View, so we'll talk about that. There's some other things out there as well. I do want to mention off the top that Trump has signed this memorandum of understanding with the Islamic Republic of Iran. So we are moving towards a solution, a peaceful solution now to prevent the Iranians from obtaining nuclear weapons and stopping their role in terrorist activities in the region and beyond that, my friend. So that's good news. We'll see. It's amazing to me how people think that Trump has lost this war. The amount of willing ignorance here, or maybe it's just simply just disdain and hatred for President Trump. The amount required to come to that conclusion and to hope, candidly, that this falls apart or that this is somehow not good for the United States of America. This is foreign to my way of thinking. And I think it's foreign to most Americans' way of thinking as well. But I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that here off the top, my friends, on this Thursday. My goodness, it is hard to believe how fast time goes. If you're curious about Kratom, just trying to figure out who you can trust, check out Christopher's Organic Botanicals. They are a family-run company that offers natural, lab-tested Kratom, not the synthetic garbage that's given Kratom a bad name. Real Kratom is responsibly sourced, it's tested for purity, and it is, well, it's natural. It's not a synthetic. That, my friends, is what Christopher's Organic Botanicals is all about. They work directly with farmers in Indonesia. They follow the same traditions that have been trusted for generations. No gimmicks, no shortcuts. Just a clean, honest alternative for people looking for a more natural way to support their health. You can start with their Kratom Starter Pack. Coupon code ToddHuff saves you 10% off your first purchase. Again, it's Todd Huff, first and last name, all squeezed together there, my friends. Visit Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com. That's Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com. Truth, tradition, transparency. Okay, so JD Vance, and I admire this, first and foremost. Let's set the stage here for what happened earlier this week. It's something I've wanted to talk about for a couple of days now, just getting a chance to do it. But let's set the stage. We have, we're in the midst of this cold civil war, as I talk about here on this program regularly. There are many fronts to the cold civil war. I used to refer to these things as the 7 pillars of propaganda because these are pillars. The fronts of in the Civil War are the pillars, the pillars of these important pillars in society that the left has basically taken over, hijacked, and have used to further their political narrative, their political ideology, and shove that down the throats of the American people, sometimes quite subtly, oftentimes, without even calling any attention to it whatsoever. This is the most effective way. It's not persuading people. It is brainwashing them to some degree, getting them desensitized to certain things. They use things like entertainment. They use things like academia. These are those pillars. I've stopped calling them the pillars of propaganda because I think it's better to state that these are the fronts of this cold civil war. And I used to say there were 7. These were built out from Rush Limbaugh's his 4 pillars. He didn't call them pillars. 4 corners of deceit, which again is the same sort of concept where the left is using these institutions, these pillars of society, to further a narrative insidiously, covertly, behind the scenes. When people don't have their defenses up, they're getting people, it's little things like getting people to adopt certain phrases or language. My body, my choice is an example of this. People just repeat this. I watch some of these conversations that people have with abortion abolitionists or pro-life folks, and they'll repeat these narratives as though they've stumbled upon the most grandiose truth of the universe, but yet they haven't thought about the words that are coming out of their mouth. My body, my choice is, of course, a perfect example. No one's questioning what a woman can do with her body. It's the destruction of the body that's living inside her womb. That is the problem. And so people say these things, they adopt these philosophies, these talking points, without even having a defense up, because the left has taken control of the media, of entertainment, of academia. These are the fronts. And I used to say there were only 7. Now I say that there are 8, and it troubles me to tell you what the 8th one is because it should never be this way. But one of these 8 battlefronts that we're facing here in this cold civil war is the church. Now, I want to be very careful how I say this. The church is something that was established by God to proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ, to give believers a place to gather together, to encourage one another, to work effectively as the body of Christ. I'm not calling any of that into question. What I'm calling into question or bringing to attention here is that there are people who have infiltrated the Christian church, some of them carrying the label pastor, priest, whatever, and they have a completely different version of Christianity, calling some of the established truths of God's word, calling them into question, turning them on their heads. This is where you'll see people come out with rainbow attire as preachers, and who are talking about how God is accepting of all sorts of behavior from human beings, when the reality is that God calls us to turn from our sin. Doesn't mean that we hate the person. It means that we have to confront the reality that we are exactly who the Bible tells us we are. I could talk about this for a while, but I don't want to get down this path too far. I'm just setting the stage for the conversation that's taking place with JD Vance and the women on The View. So there's these battlefronts that we're engaging in across our society. And one of those is, of course, media. And here we have the stage is set now. You have the ladies of The View who talk to their audience on a regular basis. These are the audience is comprised mostly of women. And a lot of these are women who are, of course, left of center, or maybe some in the moderate camp, but left of center. These are women who are who've listened to the narrative that's being pushed by the left. They've accepted it. They think Trump is a fascist and a dictator. They believe some of the things that they've heard from the so-called pro-choice movement, the abortion, baby-killing machine out there. They regurgitate these things without really, having any understanding about what they're saying, any care even for some of them. Some of them just do it strictly out of ignorance. I don't mean that in some aggressive way. I just think that they don't know. Ignorance means without without knowledge. They don't know what they're saying and what they're proclaiming. I hope that they wake up. So it's a very left of center audience. And of course, they're listening to these people each and every day. They've got maybe a Republican up there who is a Trump-hating Republican, right? There's not a MAGA person on the stage, which whatever, they can do what they want. I don't have a radical leftist here in the studio because candidly, I've been looking for the entire existence of this program, which is fast approaching 11 years, for the left's version of conservative not bitter. They are incredibly bitter. They are full of rage. They are full of violence and hatred. I'm talking specifically about the godless radical left. So I can't even bring someone on here from that viewpoint because they don't fit the same mold, of course, as someone who's conservative, not bitter. They can't have an adult conversation. They are full of rage. They are fuming. They believe that they are justified in inflicting violence against those on the right, those who support Trump, those who are conservative, those who do not agree with growing government to solving all of our problems. They just refuse to accept the reality that government is much better at creating problems than it ever is at solving them. So JD Vance walks into it. This is the stage that's set that we live in two different universes, not even two different worlds, my friends, two different universes. The radical left, again, believes this country is teetering on the brink. By the way, this complements what we're getting into. You may have seen, let me read really quickly from this article here. I think it's here. Yeah, this is redstate.com. More bad polling news for Dems as it shows their views on patriotism, quote, patriotism changed drastically. So basically, there's a poll conducted here. They talked about it on CNN. I might talk about this in more detail. I'm just, again, referencing this to paint the picture, to set the stage for what is happening in our country and what JD Vance walked into. Two diametrically opposed worldviews that candidly often don't have the slightest idea. At least one side doesn't have the slightest idea what the others believe. But according to polling, to demonstrate this rift, this divide in America, only 27% of Democrats will fly the American flag on July 4th, America's 250th birthday, by the way. Only 27% of Democrats will fly the flag. 64% of Republicans said they will. Only 29% of Democrats are, quote, extremely proud to be American compared to 90% of Republicans. And so we have this diametrically opposed, and I'll get into this. It's just something I'd like to get to, time permitting. But this is the world, this is the battlefield, the metaphorical battlefield in this cold civil war that JD Vance steps into when he joins the ladies of The View. So he wastes no time, my friends, getting right into it. JD Vance walks out onto the stage. This was what? This was the 16th. Was this Tuesday, I guess? So he walks out to the stage with the ladies on the view that I just kind of described, you know about already. And this is how it begins.
How tall you are. It's very tall.
Well, if you only see somebody on TV, you just see their, in my case, giant heads.
There we go.
It hides how tall I am.
Yeah.
That's right.
We are the table of big heads here.
So this is a show of MAGA Republicans, right? That's what my media team told me? Okay, good.
Well, we'll find out.
So he walks out. First they comment how tall he is. You know, it is hard to realize how tall some people are or short some people are or whatever when you only see them on television. They comment on that. Makes a comment about his head. Whoopi says this is the show of people with big heads. And JD Vance says, look, this, just to be clear, my media team tells me that I'm on a MAGA Republican show, right? To which there are some nervous giggles on the stage. And Whoopi says, we will find out. So, of course, we don't need to find out. We know exactly what we're dealing with. This Whoopi was a joke. You should have just laughed and said, absolutely not. This is one of the things that I guess is a little bit intriguing to me. You know, I have made it clear from the very beginning on this program that, listen, I am not a journalist. A journalist is someone who comes to, well, whatever their platform is, whether they're writing for a publication, whether they're writing a blog, whether they're on television news, whatever, their job, and it's of course, nobody knows what this is anymore because there are so few real journalists. Journalism itself is dead. Truly, journalism is dead. It's a frightening thing to come to grips with. So we know that when we're given information, the chances are incredibly high that we are given information by journalists, right? We're not in the room. We don't have the papers. We don't know the reporting, the investigating. We only know what the people who have that information, who control that information, decide to tell us about that information. This is why what we learned with Project Veritas, James O'Keefe, when he crashed the meetings. Remember, he had somehow gotten himself into the CNN weekly meetings or maybe daily meetings where they were basically the CNN president at the time was telling his team of journalists, if it doesn't hurt Trump, then I don't want you bringing it to this meeting. We're not going to put it on our news. And it was an eye-opener to some people. Many people have no idea about that. That's been a couple of years ago. Many people have no idea about that. They don't think that deciding what goes on to a news report, the evening news or whatever, what makes its way through the editors, what their the process of deciding what gets published and so forth, that is all, that there are executive decisions made. And that's part of it. Listen, I'm not debating whether or not that should be part of the process because you can't report everything that happens on planet Earth. You have to make decisions. The decisions, however, should be, what do Americans want to know? What information do we have that would be most beneficial for Americans to hear, to know, to have information on? Not what helps my political party win an election. But that's what CNN was doing. I mean, according to these videos, there's certainly evidence of that. And so that's been revealed. But I'm not a journalist, right? And in fairness, these ladies on The View are not journalists either. Now, I don't know sometimes if they try to present themselves that way, but the truth is that they are commentators. They're editorializers. They take the information that's out there. They tell you what they think about it. They try to persuade and change people's minds. And that's fine. That's what I do on this program. But here's the difference. I'll flat out tell you, I'm not a journalist. If I had a Democrat on my program and they came onto the phone or whatever and they said, I understand I'm speaking to a liberal audience, I would say, well, you had better think again. Someone's misinformed you. We're not bitter here, but we're conservative. But I want to give you the opportunity to share your perspective. I want to talk with you about some of these things. I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm not going to accept some of these simple answers. Reminds me, when I was in Washington, D.C., we had, I loved that experience that we had with this class when I was there. It was called the Justice Program, I believe. It was a pre-law sort of program at American University, but we had some really cool experiences, and they brought in different people. We did things. We visited a prison. We visited one of those basically boot camps where teenagers would go instead of going to prison, where they would basically be treated like they were in basic training or something in the military. Boot camp. We did a bunch of different things. I remember visiting the prison. Boy, that was an eye-opener for me. I remember the warden, or actually the guard or the warden one, we were in a room and they started showing us the shanks that they had confiscated from people in the prison population. Right after letting us walk amongst the prison population. I'm glad they, I guess, waited to show us that after they had let us walk around freely out there. But I remember one of the things that they did, we talked about a wide scope of issues. They brought in people to talk about the First Amendment, the freedom of religion. They brought in a guy named Barry Lynn. He worked for I know he ran a group called the Americans United for the Separation of Church and State. He says he was a pastor. But he was standing firmly against basically any sort of religion whatsoever, religious people even, from my vantage point. He stood against those folks even being in government. And on their website, it said celebrating, I forget the number of years, 75 years of freedom. And so I asked them a question in class. They came in and took our questions. And I said, Mr. Lynn, I'm asking you this question not as someone who's got a mission to fight for the separation of church and state, as you would say. I'm asking you this as a question, as a pastor. I'm asking you this question as you are a pastor, someone who proclaims the gospel of Jesus Christ. Jesus says in the Bible that he is the way, the truth, and the life. And the Bible also tells us that the truth will set us free. I said, I'm just curious, by preventing the gospel message, by standing in the way of that being communicated clearly, when you've shut it down in instances, how, as a pastor, you reconcile that with your faith. And I thought there's some version of that. It's been 20-some years now. And I thought I had a good question, and I wanted to have back and forth, but his response wasn't even really a response. And that was an eye-opener to me. It didn't even answer the question, right? And so there's a lot of these games being played where, you have people walk into, say, JD Vance walking onto The View, and there's a lot of games being played by politicians and journalists where they pretend to ask real questions, they pretend to give real answers, but the truth is it's just a game of sophistry. That's not what we got here. We got JD Vance, who's actually wanting to reach the people who have been lied to about him and this administration. And we've got more clips about that, my friends, that we'll get into, but I've got to take a quick little time out here. Let's face it, there are a lot of companies out there that don't share your Christian values. The good news is that you do not have to invest in them. At 48 Financial, they specialize in biblically responsible investing. They'll help you screen out companies that go against your faith, your values, and create a plan that's tailored to your goals. They'll handle all the heavy lifting so you can focus on what really matters. If you want to see if your current investments align with your values or to what degree they do, it's easy to do this. All you have to do is visit 48financial.com/Todd. Take a very quick and very easy assessment. 48financial.com/Todd. 48 Financial, because our values matter and so does our money. Time out here for me, my friends. Back in just a minute. All right, welcome back, my friends. Got more clips. JD Vance sitting down with the women on The View. Again, what he's trying to do is reach across the aisle here. He's talking, listen, we've identified who the audience is. These are women who are left of center, maybe moderate to left of center. There's a group of women sitting on this panel each and every day that hate Donald Trump, who have told their viewers just how terrible he is and his policies. Even the lone Republican up here doesn't do very much in the way of defending Trump, and that's fine. I've done some comparing and contrasting. I tell you what I think. I don't have any problems with people sharing their opinions. I'm a big free speech guy. Let's get these out there in the light of day. Let's compare the answers and the facts. Let's go through this methodically. Let's not just base this upon emotion, which is what a lot of this is. And listen, they live in the world of emotionalizing and sensationalizing everything. That's what this is. This is not a deep program. This is a program that's, again, this is one of the problems I have with modern liberalism, with, of course, the ideology of the godless radical left. This is, it's emotion. It's feeling. It's a mile wide and an inch deep as far as its viewpoints and beliefs are concerned. And so you can't dig deep, because you'll realize that you hit rock bottom when you take that first shovel full of dirt, if there's even a shovel full of dirt to take out of these positions held by these people on the left. But this is America. And I commend him for going on here. He's trying to reach people who are being misled or lied to or given half-truths or given a very questionable interpretation of the things that Trump has said and done. They've peddled so many things that have not been true on this program repeatedly. It's remarkable, really, what they've said. Sonny, I don't know who the biggest offender is on here. Sonny Hostin, Whoopi Goldberg. There's a lot. Joy Behar. There's a lot of choice, a lot to choose from here. But he walks into this. And he sits down to have a conversation. So we're going to pick up here in a minute where Joy Behar is going to talk about another misrepresentation of what Trump has said. JD Vance tries to set the record straight, talking about affordability, talking about inflation. We'll do that, my friends, here in just a second. But ever wish that you had a whole team to help manage your financial life? That's the beauty of family office services at Full Suite Wealth. Their experienced advisors bring together everything from high-level investment management, private equity, private credit, option strategies, to complex legal needs, all customized for you. It's like having a family office just for you with people who know your story, your goals. If you're serious about planning for the long haul, check them out. Jason and his team will take great care of you at Full Suite Wealth. FullSuiteWealth.com is the website. Again, that's FullSuiteWealth.com. Build your legacy, my friends. Secure your future. So let's go back here. Let's go back to this clip from the View. This is a little bit longer, a little bit shy of 2 minutes, but I want to play this. Joy Behar questioning JD Vance about inflation, affordability, and his response.
So President Trump has called affordability a hoax. He said that, not me. He's pouring money into this ballroom of his and the reflecting pool. Oh, don't forget the Arch de Trumpe, I call it, and a White House cage match. All these things. Why is he doing them when you just, everybody knows that Americans are struggling? What is he spending all this money for?
Well, I got to defend
Let me pause for a second. Were there questions like this during Biden's administration? I don't watch this show. It's as though Joy Behar or these women on The View have just realized that America has an affordability crisis itself. It didn't start with Trump. I'll let JD Vance give his answer here. But I just want to ask you, did you hear these questions when Biden was running the country? JD Vance will allude to that. But it's preposterous to think that Trump started the affordability problems that we have today. I find that the left gives excuses whenever their person is in charge. And you could say both sides do this. That's part of the game of politics. I have to tell you, my son years ago asked me, Dad, what is politics? And I said, politics is the art of taking credit for everything that's good in America and casting the blame for everything that's bad on your political adversaries, your political opponents. And I hate to have that calloused view of what politics is, but I think that that's a pretty fair depiction of what's going on. If something's good, people want to say, look, we caused that, we were a part of that. If something's bad, they say, look, well, you didn't let us fix the problem, you didn't give us enough money, or, of course, our political opponents are to blame for that. And, of course, the truth is, sometimes that's absolutely true. But the reality is that there's never, I shouldn't say never. On a program like this, there are discussions about this. But a program like The View, there's not real discussions or pushback, or there rarely is, and there is in this instance. So I guess I commend them for even bringing him on. But the only reason I think they agreed to bring him on is because they thought that they could win the debate, if you will. Keep it on superficial things, get it into name calling and all this hatred for Trump and things like that. But it didn't go that direction. So JD Vance responds here to her question.
The president on the hoax point. What the president said is the idea that Republicans caused the affordability problem is a hoax. And I think that's true. If you go back to the Biden administration, inflation got up to 9% under the Biden administration. 9%. Okay. Right
True.
now it's at 3.5%. By the way, too high. We're doing everything that we can to bring it back down to 2.5%, which is where most people would like to see it. But we inherited an affordability problem. We're doing a lot to make it better. It's going to take a little bit of time. There's a lot more work to do. But the president knows that a lot of Americans are struggling. In fact, he ran on that. He talked about it. And we've done some things and made some good progress on that point.
He just said he loves the inflation.
Okay, pause. He was asked another question by Anna, what's her last name? Is it Navarro? Sitting to his left, but let's address this one. He says Trump doesn't say that there's a hoax that people can't afford things. What Trump is saying is that the affordability crisis is not something that began with his administration. And that is true. I mean, folks, do you not remember? I know you do. You know, our audience is drastically different than the audience of The View. You are informed. You pay attention. You are thoughtful. You probably consume media, not all of you, but some of you consume media that runs the gamut from conservative media to maybe true journalism to far left or liberal media. You're very informed as to what's going on here, and I love that about you. These women who watch The View are typically not. It's not because they're stupid or anything like that. It's because they decide to be governed by emotional reactions, hatred for Trump. They believe that they should trust these people to tell them what's going on in the world or how to think about it. They don't do any of their own thinking or research or anything else. They just parrot these points and discussions that are had on this program. But inflation, two things I want to hit on. Number one, I talk about this a lot. Inflation is a specific phenomenon. In fact, I encourage you don't even listen to me. Go back and listen to the late, great Milton Friedman, the economist who was absolutely phenomenal. I loved Milton Friedman. Go back and listen to, he went on shows like Donahue. If Milton Friedman were alive today, he would be on The View. He would love these opportunities to explain to the audience and to these women economics. But inflation is something very specific. Inflation is when government spends more money than there's actual economic value created in the marketplace. So what money is, my friends, is a reflection of real value that's been created through financial transactions. So when real value is created and when you live in a system where you're not just engaging in bartering, I need something that physically shows, like a dollar, some amount of money that says, I created value. I don't need to do some sort of bartering with the person I gave the value to. Let's say I built a house. I don't ask them to go plant me a field, right? We're past that point of economic development. Instead, what we do is we say, here is $1 to show that you've created real value. Well, what happens in inflation is that the government produces more dollars than actual value created in the economy. And so the only way to adjust, the only way for that to mathematically work is for the dollars that are out there to lose some of their value because it seeks an equilibrium. It seeks reality. And so if it waters down the value of your dollar, that's true inflation. What we're seeing with gas prices, we refer to those loosely as inflation, but it's not true inflation. It is certainly the prices at the pump going up, more cost to the American taxpayer. I got more to say about this. I can't. I'm up against the clock, my friend. We'll pick it up on the other side of the break. Quick time out, though. Back in just a minute. Welcome back. I want to make sure I make this point here on inflation. Inflation leads to prices increasing, but not all price increases are the direct result of inflation. We've gotten lazy in this country, and where we call everything, every time that the prices go up, we call it inflation. But there is something dramatically and fundamentally different between prices increasing because the government created too much money supply in the system, and it doesn't reflect the real value that was created in the economy, and so it waters down the value of existing dollars. There's something fundamentally different between that and between a problem with supply chain economics because there's a war in a region. That's not the same thing. In fact, we've already seen gas prices begin to come down now that we've struck this deal with Iran, and there's going to be the free flow of oil again. And listen, the administration knew that this was going to happen when we engaged in this war with Iran. And it's a terrible decision, or it's a terrible thing to have to think about and to make decisions on. But if what we're being told is true, as far as from the administration's point of view, what they've seen and the intelligence that they've gathered and so forth, if the Islamic Republic of Iran was about to get a nuclear weapon, we had to stop that. We had to say, listen, this is going to be uncomfortable for a bit, but we have to prevent that. And right now we're on the path to that. I mean, so much of this remains to be decided. History is waiting to be written here. But we're in a much stronger position to do that than we were when this started. So now the prices are coming down. It's not true inflation that's caused by the government producing too much money. It's prices increasing because there's a supply chain problem, because there's a war, right? So that's dramatically different, and that's important to understand. But I want to play JD Vance's remaining part of his response here in just a moment, my friends. But before I do that, conservatives, it's time to take a stand with your wallet. That's why we created Freedom Marketplace, a free directory of businesses that share your values and refuse to support leftist candidates and leftist causes. You don't have to have a login to join. You can create one, but you don't need one. There's no gimmicks. It's free for you to use. This is just a simple way to connect you with businesses that love America as much as you do, especially as we embark upon her 250th birthday. If you're tired of funding the woke agenda, head on over to freedommarketplace.net. That's freedommarketplace.net. It's free, it's easy, and my friends, it's the patriotic thing to do. freedommarketplace.net, liberty and business for all. Let's listen to the remaining part of JD Vance's answer here. Second part of the question, I guess, when, again, he's asked by another person on The View here well, actually, I'm going to back this up a couple seconds so we get her question. But here's JD Vance finishing his response to that question.
Talked about it, and we've done some things and made some good progress on that point.
He just said he loves the inflation.
What he said, Anna, what he said is that...
Is she suggesting that he means that Trump means he loves inflation and he loves having economic burdens on the people of this country? Is that really what she said? She can't be serious. She cannot possibly be serious. But JD Vance explains
that he loves the fact that the inflation is going to come down when this war is over. That's what he said.
That's not what he said.
That wasn't a direct. Are you his interpreter or are you his vice president? Come on.
Well, look. What the president
Faking
said.
a smile
People were asking
there.
about the inflation.
Joy
they were asking
Behar.
about the affordability problem, which again is very real. And what he said is, "I love the inflation because it's going to come down when the war is over." And now, again, we already see gas prices today, $4.06 a gallon, too high, but way down from where they were just a couple of weeks ago. So there's a lot we got to do, but I think that we're doing as much as we can. We're going to keep on working at it. And again, the American people are going to make their verdict. But
so we're going to see the price of gas come down. It's going to take some time. It might trickle down. Again, if the conflict resumes, we'll see that change. But let's assume that there's no additional conflict. You're going to find that these things are intimately connected, and you're going to see that it's going to come down. I mean, unless there's another problem, right? If there's another issue with these sorts of things, but you're going to see this happen. Everybody knows this. People are already responding as though they do understand this. So, listen, I wish I could get more into this. I commend JD Vance for going onto the program, for trying to talk some sense. There's one other. Let me see how long this particular clip is. Yeah, I can't get to it, but he was asked about, of course, talking about the southern border, and of course the left, the people on The View, misrepresent what's happening as far as it comes to illegal immigration, as far as it comes to deportations. He did say this. JD Vance said, do you know that during the last administration, we had tens of thousands of children who were sex trafficked by cartels, brought into our country in profoundly dangerous, and he's right on this, dangerous and predatory ways or predatory conditions. So it's good for people to hear. I wanted to play that clip. I just don't have time, but it's good for people to hear this on that side because they don't hear this. They hear that Trump is trying to separate families, that he's racist for deporting people, that he's heartless and everything else. So kudos to him for going out there, my friends. I'm just simply out of time here. Gotta run. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day. SDG.